You can have a nice, easy day, as it were, when nothing much happens, and then something happens. You may get an alarm bell, you may get an officer assaulted, you may get prisoners fighting. You just never know what can turn up, so there is some interest.
How can you honestly rehabilitate a man who's been coming here before I was born and had every professional advice and help from teachers, doctors, psychiatrists to help him in his younger age, when he was younger, in Borstal, DC, and they expect us, which we have to do, try and help instill some sort of discipline in these people. Very, very difficult. A thankless job.
If somebody wanted, from the outside world, as I call it, if they said to me, what can we do to help in this treatment and training, I would say this: just leave us alone. Just leave the professionals, and that is what we are. Just leave us to do our job.
And generally, I think we've been presented in a bad light. I don't know why, because I believe the prison officer is an ordinary sort of bloke, perhaps a little more law-abiding. He's a taxpayer and rate-paying citizen. He does believe in freedom. He does believe in right and wrong. And I think it shows he knows that society is being threatened. And it's now and again, all right, he may turn out, he may seem to be a little bit on the harsh side. But I think it's just a backlash against the do-gooders and the left-wing MPs who seem to have the whip hand at the moment and have had for a few years now.
And don't forget, the people that we're controlling have failed to live in a normal society. But they will not fail in our society, because we will exercise control and discipline, which always sounds like a dirty word to the people outside. We will exercise control and discipline, and we will ensure that they will behave themselves in here.
With various allowances, blue-collar officers can, on average, earn over £8,000 a year. But this is dependent on at least 13 hours overtime a week. Senior officers and principal officers earn about £10,000 a year with a similar amount of overtime. Chief officers, £11,000. But there has been a growth of discontent felt by some basic grade prison officers, which has led to the possibility of a breakaway blue-collar union. This has not gone unnoticed by the #1 prison officer in Strangeways, Chief Officer Rowlandson. His first loyalty is to the governor, his second to the officers he commands. His prime duty, the smooth running of the prison. The chief is still a member of the POA, the Prison Officers Union, despite being part of the senior management in the prison. Seen here with the governor is Principal Officer Brian Baldwin, the chairman of Strangeways branch of the Prison Officers Association. Baldwin is concerned at the threat that a breakaway blue-collar union presents to the POA. John Sutton is the man at the center of this challenge to the local prison establishment. His career and reputation are now on the line. Sutton's task is a formidable one, to convince enough blue-collar officers at Strangeways and other prisons that their best interests lie with him and a new union.
And in 1980, compulsory overtime, in my opinion, is absolutely out the window. It's 7:45 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night on a bank holiday. Absolute rubbish. Are you trying to tell me that that's reasonable hours? Charles Dickens wrote books about that.
Well, John, look, I've told you before, I'm in agreement with this. Yeah. I mean, I'm a white collar, and I'm prepared to go in another union.
Well, you can't feel you're representative.
And I would say that, but your line of argument to Harry now there's nothing to do with the difference between white collar and blue collar. You're talking about the EC, which has got blue collars on it.
What man in his right mind can be expected to start work at 7 o'clock in the morning and work till 5:30 and to be told that you get paid 8 3/4 hours when we have civilians who can come in here and work on flexi hours, providing they're in between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m, will get paid for every hour they're in the establishment? You can't blame the NEC for that. You can only blame us.
We can blame
We
them.
have accepted that.
Exactly.
It's up to us to
point.
change
You've got
it.
to be represented. Now, I don't feel that the management team can represent
I do
you.
feel
but
we
this
are
has
being
got nothing to
represented.
do with the white collar and blue collar.
No.
You're expressing dissatisfaction
when
with the
people-
DOA.
When
aren't you?
people sit down at a negotiating table, and they've got to feel they've got the strength of the movement behind them. Now, if you've got management team members sitting down negotiating on behalf of the workers, it just is not going to happen, is it? You've got
You
to
talk about white collars and all that, and you're on about we have white collars here on our branch.
Yeah.
Who elected them?
When
Come on, wait a minute. Who elected them?
The membership itself,
right.
and most of them blue collars.
Exactly. The vast majority.
Most of them, the vast
agree.
Probably around 300 out
It
of
wasn't the
360
white
have blue
collars.
I
collars.
voted for them. I voted for the white collar
did.
because the men here, Baldwin and Elliot, have represented me in the past 18 months, unbelievably, far more than what I would have ever envisaged. They've been marvellous. But obviously, the problem comes here when they're like puppets for the NEC. When the Chairman Baldwin came back and said, at the meeting here, when he turned around and said he'd never seen such a carve-up in his life regarding the meeting that went on, the special delegates meeting, he actually said in all his years of experience, he was disgusted with the NEC. That's from our Chairman, and I believe him.
So change the NEC.
You see,
don't
that's
need to
it.
bring
I
it in.
agree, but the problem is they've
when you
written
put
their own...
other management men up there as well, you can't do it. In my opinion, you've got to have the workers
Well,
representing
yeah,
the
well,
workers.
what's gonna
Your NEC would be, in effect, be blue
They
collar.
would all be blue
Well, but
collar,
they guarantee-
speaking
and-
from a blue collar point of
and
view,
they're going
not
to
from a management point
They're going
of
to
view.
guarantee you that you'll get the representation that you want.
I can guarantee you this,
How can you?
mister, that the bloody management can't possibly purport to represent the workers because they're so far removed from the workers and they've got positions of authority to protect within the management infrastructure of this department that they are totally incapable of seeing the problems that we are faced with on the shop floor.
So they, and they've never worked. They've never worked.
I'll tell you what.
They've allowed this job to deteriorate. They've allowed this job to deteriorate over the last 5 years that I've
Don't
been
just
in.
blame them. Don't just blame them.
What's all this about the workers in the shop floor? That's got political overtones as far as I'm concerned.
You're not saying that I'm
We're not
politically
talking about
motivated,
politics
am I?
now.
I'm
No,
saying
we're not
that
talking
the
about
man,
politics.
the workers on the shop floor, us, we are the only
we're
people.
not. We're in a unique job, different from outside.
Are you saying that
Nothing to do with work
the
in the
fire
shop
brigade,
floor.
they've got to work in a very close-knit team. Now, they have got individual representation for the basic fire grade officers.
Yeah.
Mr. Scott was fireman. Did it work?
Oh, yeah. Of course
it'll work. Nobody's anti-management. I'm not anti-management. All I'm saying is managers manage, workers work.
And I think yours would work.
And it will work.
What standard have you got?
You want to keep calm. If you're going to start causing too much trouble, if it gets too much on you, because to make it rough.
Well, Luke, he cautioned me about the disciplinary code, where I could be held liable for bringing the service into disrepute. But it's, in my opinion, it's not me bringing the service into disrepute. The people themselves are bringing the service into disrepute by ostracising us and refusing us facilities that are granted to virtually every other group of individuals who care to put the case forward. So why us in particular? What's wrong with that?
I agree with you. I agree, but we should keep calm, because he only needs an excuse, and you could be out. Luke, not being, he could ship you out, he could do anything he wanted. If you give him an excuse, if you keep calm...
The only thing, this is not Victorian. It might be a Victorian jail, but we're not Victorian damn jailers, no.
But I don't think we can charge him with disobedience to orders.
Well, what's this bottom one saying?
A few days later, John Sutton's challenge had become a direct one for Governor Brown and the chief.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
He had appeared on a local television programme discussing his proposed new union, despite being officially forbidden to do so. The governor is now determined to discipline him under prison rules. But which rule and on what charge?
All right, neglects or without good sufficient cause first to prompt and generally do anything which is in his duty.
Well, no, he's not that's under neglect of duty, sir. He's not neglecting his duty. I think that's the one we must do him under.
Say, disobedience of orders.
Yes, but before we make out the white house sheet, discipline was failure to obey an order is not in the discipline code. Don't challenge.
Well, you're charging disobedience to orders, you're charging him. You're charging
disobeying the governor's order.
Yeah, no, disobedience to orders. I.e., disobeyed a direct order given by the deputy governor.
Without good and sufficient cause fails to carry out any lawful order.
But
well, he was given a lawful order not to contact anybody without my authority.
Yeah.
So, the ship's in a
in a good state.
Despite warnings, possible disciplinary charges, and imminent expulsion from the POA, John Sutton is determined to go ahead with his inaugural meeting of the Prison Force Federation in a hall hired for the occasion in the centre of Manchester.
Right, gentlemen, well, you can see the massive response we've had. I think this is Terror Machine 1, John Sutton 0, but we're going to go ahead because I believe that we need it. And I'm standing here tonight as an honest man, and it's taken a lot of courage, I can tell you, because I'm up against it more than anybody else. I'm so far out on a limb that if they decide to have a go, I feel that I will be standing on my own. We've got to work in conditions that, let's face it, they're Dickensian. And if we kept dogs in these places, 3 to a cell, without the ability to use proper facilities, then the RSPCA, they would think that we were being cruel to animals, wouldn't they? Would a trade union allow its members to work in a place like this? Now, where are all these inmates going? They're being crammed into the jails and they're using people like you and me as mugs.
The first official meeting of the Prison Force Federation was to be one of very few, for in a matter of months it was dead and buried. John Sutton, as its inspiration, was not inspired enough. A mixture of apathy, suspicion, and hostility defeated him. Sutton was expelled from the POA and was given an official warning from the governor about his behaviour. He still works in the prison.
In British prisons today, men are being kept in conditions like this, naked in bare concrete cells with their hands manacled to their hips, sometimes for days on end.
I thought I was going to die. I thought they were going to kill me, I'll tell you the truth, you know. That's how I felt at the time. I thought, this is it, you know, this is how I'm going to die. This is where my life's gone.
Tonight, World in Action reconstructs the harrowing experiences of prisoners in some of our jails. And we reveal how the Home Office, faced with evidence of serious assaults against prisoners, has tried to buy their silence.
My personal experiences include actually going in and intervening whilst a naked man was kicked around the floor with his teeth out, and he was covered from head to foot in boot polish that had bounced off the staff's shoes. It's not something that you can forget that.
Prisoners have a name for the jails where they may get this sort of treatment. They call them the hate factories. A year ago this week, the Strangeways riot ended. Prisoners had taken to the roof demanding an end to brutality by prison officers. In February, Lord Justice Wolfe delivered one of the most exhaustive investigations ever into the British prison system. And in Parliament, the government stands firm on its commitment to the humane treatment of prisoners.
Lord Justice Wolfe emphasises that we need to balance security and control with justice and humanity, and I wholly endorse that view. It is not the purpose of the prison system to provide holiday camps for prisoners, but it is not the purpose of the prison system to provide physical conditions which degrade and humiliate prisoners and strip away their self-respect.
But has Lord Justice Wolfe failed to grasp the nettle?
If one was to make a criticism of Wolfe, it is that he perhaps did not address as carefully as I would have liked the actual original allegations which were made by the prisoners when they first climbed on the roof at Strangeways, which was that they alleged brutality on the part of prison staff.
And World in Action's investigations have revealed serious complaints of brutality in similar local prisons all over the country. We've recorded interviews with prisoners still serving sentences. Wandsworth, a local prison in London. Charlie Pitts, still serving a 15-year sentence, was in Wandsworth a few weeks before Christmas 1988. We've reconstructed his account of the events that took place.
They was doing a routine cell search of the old wing. 2 prison officers came in, who I never knew before, from another wing. And then, all of a sudden, he's picked up one of my letters. And when he picked up my letter, he had one of my daughter's letter and one of my wife's. And as he picked the letter up, he chucked it in a bit, screwed it, and chucked it in the bin. So I stood up. All of a sudden, it come so fast was the head part, trash. Now, as he hit the nose and broke it, the blood just poured down.
3 days later, Charlie's wife visited him at Wandsworth.
And when I saw him with these two big black eyes and a big bandage across his nose, like a plaster thing, you know, and that even had all dried blood, you know, and his face was all puffy and black. And I naturally assumed he'd had a fight with another prisoner. But when he told me what had happened, you know, I couldn't believe it.
Had you done anything at all to provoke this action from...
Nothing whatsoever. No, it was ridiculous. And I've never experienced anything like that in a prison. Sorry, I mean for violence from a prison officer.
Charlie's nose was badly broken, but a plaster was the only treatment he received for some time. He was not seen by a specialist for 7 weeks, too late for proper treatment. His nose is permanently damaged. Charlie Pitts sued the Home Office. His solicitor, Kate Akerster, succeeded in getting an offer of £5,000, which she eventually accepted, but it was an ex gratia payment. The Home Office neither admitted nor denied the assault had occurred, and they wanted the settlement kept secret.
They specifically asked that he didn't go and get any publicity about the case. And he was very concerned about that indeed, because part of the reason he took the action in the first place was so that people would know about it, and he hoped that if people knew about it, then the same thing wouldn't occur again, or that there'd be less chance of it doing so, as well, of course, as getting justice, which was what he wanted also. And so he refused to accept that condition.
There was a police investigation and an internal inquiry, but no action was taken against any prison officer.
Well, they should have been taken before a court, the same as they would here, and charged with what they did. My husband is serving a sentence for his offence, so what's good for one should be good for all.
The Home Office did succeed in getting a secrecy deal from this man, Martin Foran, currently serving a 6-year sentence.
He told me that he was put into a strip cell in Liverpool, and he was beaten up by, I think, 3 to 4 officers, where they'd pulled him by the hair, they'd actually kicked him. Once he was down on the floor, they kicked him straight into the stomach, and they were sort of bouncing over him and just kicking him around like a football.
At Wandsworth Prison, Martin Foran had taken a prison officer hostage to try and bring attention to his urgent medical condition. He had been moved to Walton for a colostomy operation. 3 weeks after surgery, there was an argument with an officer at breakfast, and he was carried to a bare cell, stripped of his clothes, and sustained serious injuries which were later photographed.
And when I first seen him, he'd got a black eye, and he'd got a bruise on top of his forehead. And he looked in quite bad way, actually. So when it came to it, I seen the state of the colostomy. He could not wear a bag or nothing on the colostomy, because it was absolutely just... It was just too disgusting to actually see, and it was sort of as if it was being pulled out by the stoma line. And he'd got bruises all over his body at the same time.
Martin Foran sued the Home Office for damages at Newport County Court on the Isle of Wight. 3 days into the case, he was offered an out-of-court settlement, an ex gratia payment of £750, and agreed to sign a secrecy clause. There was an official investigation, but no action was taken against any prison officer.
It sounds very much as if the Home Office has perhaps been buying off the victims, buying them off to pay for their silence. And so I don't mind prisoners being paid compensation. That's right. Anybody who is assaulted or is treated in an improper way should be paid compensation. But the important thing is to ensure that it never happens again. And you only do that by actually making public what has occurred, by carrying out the fullest investigation.
The Home Office is also keeping secret a report about what happened to this man, Eddie Holland, and several others in the hospital wing of another local jail, Armley Prison in Leeds. Eddie Holland is still serving a 6-year sentence for drugs offences. In 1988, he was in Full Sutton, a long-term dispersal prison near York. We've secretly interviewed him.
I damaged my finger in my cell one evening moving some furniture, and I reported sick that night, and the medical officer who was on, we both agreed that the finger was broken, and he gave me some painkiller tablets, 2 to take then and 2 to take later on. I did this, but the pain was excruciating and I didn't get any benefit from the tablets, so the very next day I reported sick again and told this to the doctor.
Twice Holland saw the prison doctor. Again he was given painkillers. 3 days after the injury, he was sent for an X-ray. He was taken to Armley Prison.
When I arrived at Armley Prison, I was taken straight to the hospital wing. I was then confronted with a gang of heavies. There was sticks on display, and I was told then to take all my clothes off, and if I didn't do so, they would be taken off, you know, forcibly. They were prepared to use violence. I mean, I know the procedure.
But surely you must have done something to provoke this sort of response from prison officers.
Absolutely nothing. All I'd done was broke my finger.
Offered only a canvas jacket to wear, Eddie was locked in a barren hospital strip cell for 2 days.
Well, it's quite astonishing, if you think about it, that many of these strip cells are actually part of the prison hospital. There's no minimum standards which define what a strip cell actually is. And I'm concerned that in practice, the appropriate safeguards which should apply to the use of this so-called special accommodation, that in practice, in some prisons, they may be used routinely rather than because of some very special circumstance.
When Eddie was taken to a Leeds hospital, he was told his finger was irreparably damaged.
Well, you can see the deformity there from this one. I mean, I can't bend it now, and I am left-handed. I've lost like 90% of movement in my finger. I can't write a letter now, I can't, and I'm not ambidextrous.
So far, the Home Office has responded by offering Eddie Holland an ex gratia payment of £150.
I felt insulted. If I had have done the same to a person on Civilian Street, I would have got 15 years in prison. Kidnapping somebody, taking all their clothes off, and throwing them in a dirty, stinking room and locking the door.
Also transferred from Full Sutton to Armley Hospital Wing was this man, Bernard Kay. He's currently serving 7 years for drugs offences and fraud. Like Eddie Holland, he thought he was going to see a doctor. After complaining that his prison meals had been tampered with at Full Sutton, he decided to cater for himself. Because he wasn't eating the standard prison food, he had to see the doctor every week. After a month, he was sent to see another doctor. Bernard Kay was taken by taxi to the hospital wing at Armley Prison, Leeds. There he met with an unexpected reception.
There's a group of officers. They literally grabbed hold of me, ripped my clothes off, absolutely, totally start aching. They get what I describe as a canvas dress, banged over my head. I mean, it's literally like a dress, but too small. They frightened me to bleeding death. You know, no ifs, no buts, they won. Dirty, stinky, single cell. No furniture, nothing except a piss pot, chamber pot. Dirty, stained, old. Mattress, filthy, reeky, smelly, human excrement stained on it.
Bernard is a big gentleman of a fellow, and he was there, but it had a devastating effect on him. When I seen Bernard in the recess, he was slopping out, and as soon as he seen me, it was like somebody that had been left on an island for years on end and then seen a friendly face. Eddie, look what they've done to me.
Bernard Kay is one of 5 cases World in Action has uncovered of prisoners offered money by the Home Office to settle claims that they were abused after medical transfers from Full Sutton to Armley. News of these payoffs have come as a surprise to experts like Professor Rod Morgan, a member of Lord Wolfe's inquiry team.
We've uncovered many cases where prisoners have been beaten or maltreated in prison and have received ex gratia payments from the Home Office. In some cases, they've had to sign secrecy agreements to reach these settlements. Did you have any idea that this was going on?
I've never heard of such a report, and frankly, I'm astonished that it has happened.
An investigation into these incidents at Armley Hospital Wing was ordered by the Home Office, but they've insisted that the results remain secret. The Home Office denies that Bernard Kay was assaulted, but offered him an ex gratia payment of £500. He turned it down. For him, the money is not the issue.
But you see, some people might think that, you know, for prisoners convicted of serious crimes, a little rough treatment in prison is no more than they deserve.
Do you think that? Do you really, realistically, do you honestly believe that people, the ordinary taxpayer, the people, want people, yes, convicted, and perhaps convicted, rightly convicted, and for a long, long time? Do you really think that they want them brutalised and humiliated and degraded and made a bleeding sight worse?
Paul Hill served 14 years after being wrongly convicted of the Guildford bombings. Awarded compensation after a savage beating in Hull prison, he spent time in a number of jails and long periods in punishment wings, known by prisoners as the block.
I heard prisoners being beaten and being taken off to strip cells and being dragged down to strong boxes and being assaulted. It's a control environment. A punishment block, and you're taken to a punishment block basically to be punished and to be assaulted. And, you know, every punishment block that I've been in, I have witnessed, or I've certainly heard, prisoners being savagely assaulted.
Such abuse is confirmed by ex-prison officer John Sutton. He spent over 10 years in the service, 6 in Strangeways.
And what's the block like at Strangeways?
It's like a dungeon. It's dark, it's dismal, it's secluded, it's a place where you wouldn't wish your worst enemy to be, I hope. If you're a humanitarian, you wouldn't anyway. Staff seem to think that it's their duty to subdue these people, and that one way or the other, they will subdue them. And things like, instead of feeding them at meal times, they just wouldn't feed them, or the food that was given to them would be in some way or other inedible. It would be thrown onto the floor, or in cases where they've actually managed to provoke individual officers, it may be adulterated. Of course, prisoners who make formal complaints about this are obviously not believed, because we all know prisoners just tell lies.
It was the treatment that prisoners say was meted out to them in the punishment block that played a major role in sparking off the riot in Strangeways.
I interviewed quite a large number of prisoners in my role as assessor to the Wolf inquiry, and those interviews are confidential unless excerpts from them have been included in the Wolf report, and some have been. So all I can say is that allegations were made. It was not possible, because of time and because of possible pending prosecutions, to verify some of the allegations that were made, but some of the prisoners who were undoubtedly involved in planning a disturbance of some sort at Strangeways made allegations about the treatment of either themselves or of others.
It does seem that the punishment block was pivotal in setting off the chain of events that led to the riot.
I think it's beyond dispute that an incident was planned. I don't say the riot that took place, but an incident was planned, and that the principal seat of planning was in the punishment block.
The people who came off the block tended to be embittered and angered by the system that had obviously abused them. And the staff that were abusing them, or they would view this as being the staff that were abusing them, were on the list, weren't they? I mean, you've got some big, tough guys in prison, and they're not going to take it day after day after day. Eventually, you abuse enough people over a period of time, it's going to go. It went.
When the prisoners succeeded in having their grievances published in a local paper, top of the list was mental and physical brutality.